Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Uh, Nvidia is going to be critical today. Um, had some moves on the market which suggest downside continuation is likely. Mainly that the market's moved up and covered vector candles and then continued. Nvidia's done the same. It's also still closed below, like basically a retest of this trend line, which is a decent trend line too. Extend that back into here as well. So that's looking pretty nasty. Uh, you know, people don't particularly like the new graphics cards that they've come out with. There's potential issues and competition from China and stuff like that that may play on the market. They're going to be the excuses. At the moment, it's just the big guys have been selling into the little guys up here, and there's only so much bullishness the retail investor can actually provide to the market if the big guys aren't supporting it. Scary thing is this is BBWP's reset quite a bit, and momentum square downside. If this does continue to the downside, talking probably about $100 for Nvidia. 108 wouldn't be a bad level to stop at. That would freak the rest of the market out, but an even better target, at least for this market correction that we got going on, probably 91, 92. This is just hanging out here. Even 94, like there's a fair bit of volume there. Uh, Considering it didn't spend much time down around here within this range, that is actually a fair bit of volume. I extend this back to here. That's 94's possibility for a bounce. And again, if it does that over a period of time, then probably going to be coming into start of May. Sorry, end of May would be an interesting period because that would line up with this previous trend line. Um, yeah, it's nasty for Nvidia. Not looking good at all. I, the concern here is this just looks too obvious. I don't really see that. All right. Sorry, I was just reading a message. Cues. Again, this is what I was talking about earlier. So bounce, recover this vector, and move back to the outside. Still finding some support off the 50 EMA. How long that holds? I doubt it holds very long. I still kind of expect a little bit more of a bounce. Just there's going to be so many shorters in the market at the moment, and that's all these little bounces, tearing them to shreds. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a retest trend line. It's not super necessary given the market what it seems to want to be doing. Oh, excuse me, but it would be interesting. As you can see here, you don't necessarily have to do that with angled trend lines. Even horizontal ones are optional. This is a really good level for us, but at the moment, it looks like we may break color. And obviously, we've got reasonable trend line through here, intersecting with the 200 day. Seems to go. Few level potential support as well. There is actually another one through about there. So equal weight, NASDAQ looks like it's still got a bit more to go as well. I didn't find a bounce there yet, so expect to come more into this vector candle at least. So actually going to move that up. There is a pretty good level there. Let's see if we can find any bottom trend lines. Might have a decent one there. That in. I mean, that there would be a worst case target, I would say. Here's another one, I think, somewhere in this region. There's some interesting confluence there around sort of this level around here. Bounce. But again, I'm fully expecting that to be a dead cat bounce when it does, potentially up into that where that circle is. Still could get a new all-time high, just to blow everyone's mind. But so SPY, yeah, and it sort of moved up and took some liquidity. That wasn't a daily vector, but there would have been some 15-minute vectors at least in that region that it recovered. Still, again, good spot for a bounce and then a retry. Typically, you don't break these levels on the first try. I'd still consider this sort of the first try. This was quite a while ago. Yeah, I'm not really interested in buying the dip on this. Not at that level. The green box is going to be a much better level, I think. Down there in line with this vector. Yeah, it's playing out at the moment. Equal weight. Equal weight's still pretty flat, so it's still a little bit of rotation happening, I think. But is just see what I've got here. So tonight my time we start to get some durable goods data. Personal spending and core PCE. So these things might help with continuation. They might help with the bounce. Really tricky to know, but good news could be bad news and bad news could be good news at this stage. The market's going to use whatever excuse it needs to do what it wants to do. Again, that is actually a retest of that trend line there, the bottom of that channel. That as a measured move, I don't really want to do the full height of this thing at that point, but I'll do it down to there. It's back into this support 191. So that's yeah, I mean that's a bad sign, really. If IWM Russell 2000 just sort of grinds through, just coils a bit here and drops through this support, then the rest of the market will follow the correction. Let's go. Oops. It's not what I wanted. That'd be a 20% move, which is basically a bear market. XLI again moved up, tested the top of this little channel, and moved back down to that's basically within these two, the mid band and the top of the channel. Yeah, tough one. Doesn't look like something you really want to be buying at the moment, but all right. Yeah, break either way from this. I still think it'll come down and take this vector candle for XLI. Just might chop its way down. That's XLY, XLP, little bounce on that. So it's actually suggesting we may get a little bit of upside, but yeah. Excuse me. That is a vector candle recovery there. Don't know whether it'll fill the gap. So, where have I got that? Ah, yeah, okay. So that was the first potential point of support that I was looking at just based off that previous high there. This would be a better one though. $2.50, 2.5. It's not a dollar amount. So yeah, still some further downside to be expected, but we are getting a little bit of bounciness, a little bit of support. Data for the rest of the week may actually make this a pretty red week overall. That's not a bad rejection off that trend line though either. So these here are suggesting we could have a little bit more upside. These are pulling back. XLP versus SPY. And the equal weight XLP versus SPY is doing the same. Ooh, excuse me. I'd actually expect that to pull back a bit further back into this trend line first before bouncing. Interesting. I called this out the other day to pull back into this sort of level in here on consumer staples, and then a move away would look pretty nasty for markets, but kind of likely at the moment. The only thing with that is it's already done most of that move. If you look at it as a W formation, it'll come back up into here. But if you look at it as a double bottom, that's double bottom can typically lead to it's a pretty major reversal pattern like that. Consumer discretionary, pulling back a little bit. I'm surprised this hasn't dropped a bit more actually. That to me is, I mean, it's recovered the vector candles and it's moving back down. So I guess that's the play at the moment. KRE, regional banking, still got a bit to come, I think, into this trend line here. 200 EMA. It's tried, can't get back above the 50 EMA. ITB, it's like it's pulling back before that trend line. It's just weak, like lots of weakness, but momentum's suggesting that it could turn around soon as well. So this may just be a bottoming formation happening at the moment. It needs to, but I expect this just to be dead cat bounce. Don't think we're going to new all-time highs at all. XHB, same sort of deal. Potentially got a little bit further to come for home builders. Semis, again, recovered at least part of this vector candle and then it's moved away again. Video earnings are going to be very Very interesting. It could actually bring us straight into this level here, the 228, 229. It should be a reasonable level for support. But at the same time, it's probably move down, bounce, and then move back down again. Yeah. Even if Nvidia pumps this thing, still I wouldn't expect much more than maybe a gap fill up here. Although we've almost filled that gap just recently. So there is quite a few points for a turnaround above. I don't think it's going to go to new all-time highs. Could be wrong, but just be where we are within a range at the moment. The break of that range either way could lead to some big moves too. Again, DJI Gold and DJT Gold is still broken down. DJT Gold going into a level where it's not a bad level for support there. I think it needs to really start making its way back up though for be calling a decent bounce on the economy itself. That'll be the first trend line it needs to could even if we break above that and confirm, that's a pretty steep trend line, but that could suggest that that could suggest that the bounce has started on stock markets. DJT, pretty critical levels here though. I suspect keep going for the time being for the downside. VIX has continued to grind its way up a bit. Still not really getting the spike that's suggesting we're at the bottom here, which is weird because these drops weren't as big as the current drop. A little strange there. Skew, little bounce yesterday, and we have been relatively flat, some up, some down today. So kind of aligns. If the skew continues downside print today, then I would expect more downside tomorrow. And potentially led by Nvidia. The VIX one day is still continuing the downside with this, so that's probably still got a little bit to go. That's a trend line there. Could find a bounce off this. It's just one to watch. Whatever this is pointing to the downside, not a great sign for markets. DAX has actually had a bit of a recovery of the vector candle. I do expect it to continue back to the downside though. Interesting, the Hang Seng's finally broken out. Retested moving averages and that previous vector resistance as well. So this China could be the play here, but extended too. It can keep ripping though. Market. UK 100 back above the moving averages. This could actually keep going to the upside. Probably going to find some resistance at this point here, but at the moment, Yeah, probably another couple of days upside. Japanese market, it's holding on at the moment. Does not want to break down, but I think it's kind of inevitable that it will. At the same time, momentum could turn around pretty quickly and actually get a rip to the upside. TLT, this is suggesting that investors are still in a flight to safety. So good moves here on TLT. High yield junk is still going well. Wouldn't have thought that that would be used as a flight to safety. Did stay high during this drop in July 24. Eventually came down with it. Could be seeing something similar to that, actually. We could see another leg down and then high yield will drop off at the same time. It typically, yeah, high yield lead the way. It started dropping off here first before this drop. Same thing here, it was pulling back earlier than the market itself. Basically led the turnaround. So yeah, sometimes it's a good indication that there's something wrong. This at the moment is suggesting that we may get a little bounce, but if this starts to drop hard, market keeps moving to the downside, then it's probably going to continue a little bit longer. A little flash crash here, like in 2024. You get a big gap down like that, and the market hasn't dropped off much. That's concerned. And it led the market out of the bottom. What I'll be looking for, but it's strange. This one's probably a better indicator. Sitting right on the trend line at the moment, so interesting to see what happens here. It may actually want to continue down. Probably the 200 EMA there is at a pretty good level. Bit of vector candle action there. That's something to keep an eye on. If that bounces away, then there's a little relief bounce on markets. 10 years going back. 3 months, 10 years, actually nearly heard it again. But yields are still coming down. Or just broke quick here. Still think is their yields will find a bit of a bounce. 2-year yields. Same 10-year yields looks like a breakdown. That's pretty reasonable retest of the 200 and that trend line as well. So a couple of days down on yields, should see a couple of days down on markets. Still copper, rip to the upside and then rip back down to the downside. That's a nothing. Is finding support at the 0.5 fib, but the markets are going to crash and crash it. To the downside, that could have just been a bit of a vector candle recovery, a liquidity grab. Gold kind of pulling back a little bit as well, which I do expect this to keep going a little bit more. It can keep grinding though up here, just to get to that 3,000. But I suspect it's going to be for 20th of March, mid to late March, before we get the 3,000 gold. Silver, little bounce here, but not expecting too much out of that. US oil. US oil hit the value area, basically hit the value area low. I still expect to come down and tag that. But at this stage, oil looks like it wants to test these lows again. Dixie, actually, I'll just check this. I do have a buy order sitting around here, so I think that'll be a good, maybe a day more for oil. BBWP is expanding though with a downward momentum, so we may actually break this trend. If that trend breaks, then oil could drop quite a bit. Dixie retest again of the 50 EMA. Momentum still downside though, as I'm concerned on that. And that measured move looks like it may play out. So again, probably expect a little bit of a bounce for the Dixie somewhere around the 105.2. Although that's not a bad level there with the previous highs as well. Somewhere in that region, I would say. I'm actually going to put that in the box. Just because the 200 EMA is there as well. We're getting close to a bounce on Dixie, I think. Aussie dollars still struggling. It actually looks like it wants to come back pretty hard. So a bounce on Dixie would make a bit of sense. Japanese yen's testing these highs still. Hasn't broken yet. Euro USD struggling with the 50 EMA again. Struggled with it back here as well. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Dixie bounces pretty soon, actually, just that. Global liquidity's pulled back a little bit today. That's not a great sign. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average pulled back a little. Well, yeah, it was kind of flat yesterday. Mag 7, flat. Vector candle recovery, basically. Still got a couple above there. So this could be the start of the bounce off this trend line. So if NVIDIA does perform well, expect this to probably come up and retest here. If not, may finish about 22.35. Be a little bit lower than that. But yeah, generally there's going to be some interesting resistance levels on the way back up if we do get a bounce. Tesla looks like it wants that gap close. Wouldn't be considering buying this until at least 253. But 216 is a big gap fill as well. Yeah, as I said, NVIDIA doesn't look great. Just going to have a quick look on the shorter time frames. Earnings are still a couple of hours away. Got, so they gave an actual time on that, but down there and a half. Little pull up into the 130 would be interesting in the lead up to that. Potentially 131. If it's heading up there in the lead up, literally the 15-minute candle before earnings is probably going to tell you which way it's going. The 15-minute is momentum to the upside at the moment, but yeah, we could look nasty. This just looks like a bit of a candle recovery. It's decent double bottom on the 1 hour though too. And it's a bit of hit and miss on this one. Coin flip at the moment. But yeah, the 15-minute candle, even the 5-minute, 10-minute candles before earnings will probably give you the best guide which way it's going. All right, Google. Google has closed the gap and is still going. Interesting there. The previous good buy level. I actually expect it to come a little lower than that if we get there. Like, again, a little bit of a retest on the daily of the 200 moving average and rejection off that. You should see this level pretty quick. Google does have still a massive gap above that too. So the bounces that we're going to see this year are going to be pretty decent, I think. But I don't think we'll be seeing many, if any, all-time highs. Microsoft is a hit right top of our box there. I do expect that to continue a bit though. More into the middle of this box, 390 would be a potential bounce point for Microsoft. Got some vector candles and some gaps above as well. RK, decent little bounce off the mid band there. It's got a lot of vectors above as well, so this could be the start of a little bottom. So again, bit of a coin flip. I think it's going to be choppy. Individual stocks are going to be the story, but in general, I would expect continuation to the downside. Well, M decent candle to the upside, but this stage it just looks like vector candle recovery. No closure above those short-term moving averages. Amazon retested the break and looks like it's rejecting that at the moment. Big vector candle wick to the downside there. I think that's a pretty good target, but you'd be right in the middle of these two trend lines as well. I think that's probably a better buy zone would be somewhere in here at 181, 182. Meta, yeah. Funny how they respect trend lines so well. No. Doesn't look like it's super interested in bouncing here though. This could just be a little relief bounce and moving into more of a break of that trend line. It has recovered half that vector candle though, so back up into this high wouldn't surprise me either. Airbnb. Again, close the gap and a little bounce. It's just retesting these moving averages at the moment, but if the rest of the market bounces, then Airbnb should as well. Expect a bit more of a general move up though, rather than the gap up like it did on earnings. That's looking pretty nasty for AMD. That's an ominous sign for NVIDIA. There's a lot of negative commentary around NVIDIA at the moment leading into earnings though, so whenever that happens, you kind of lean towards bounce, to be honest. If retail's shorting it, there's a lot of negativity in the market at the moment. Everyone's finally on board with the economy being shit and all that sort of stuff. It's a good setup for a bounce. TSM, Stellantis, nothing major. Well, that's a big drop on Stellantis on earnings actually. not huge, but big enough that that was at the open. So interesting little range they're stuck on here though. So just looks like a retest this trend line. If it continues below this trend line, then I'd expect Stellantis to be breaking these lows. And hey Mash, recording video. Okay. Watch. So Aussie market looks like it might find a little bit of support. I'd like to see it come back a little bit more. ETH BTC. These guys are still longing ETH BTC. ETH BTC is still very low. BTC USD longs. People are buying the dip big time at the moment, so I think we will be getting pretty close to a low soon. Soonish. Cyclic RSI is potentially going to put in a bullish divergence here too. It is very low. We don't often see it this low. And Ethereum, that's a pretty nasty retest of that trend line and move away. So I expect Ethereum to keep coming down a bit. Maybe not all of this wick, but at least most of it will be recovered, I think. Yeah. CME, vector candle recovery here on CME. You could basically call that done, but that gap at 77, it's got to be on everyone's radar. The 200 EMA is pretty close to that as well. So a wick down below the 200 EMA to pick up the gap and then a closure above, I'd actually find that a pretty good bounce point price. This is the one I'm more interested in though. We actually look like we want to test this long-term trend line. This is the bear market trend line, and typically you will get a bounce off this the first time it tries it. So yeah, we could be pretty close to the bottom here. This is a bounce away from here is going to be what I'm really looking for. And this is a region, so we're getting very close to it. But I think a bounce from that would actually be pretty close to the bottom in here around 81. So Bitcoin hits somewhere around 81. We have broken below this vector in here too. So there is a couple of vectors down to that 81.8. I think that's a very good target for a bounce. A little bit of volume there as well, volume spike. So sweep of that area, I think, is it's going to align with that bear market support trend line. And yeah, I think that's kind of what will happen. So not necessarily expecting a bounce from this point. I think a little bit lower would be nice. And a bounce from there.
Why is that copying you on there?
Because it's recording. Sending it. Total. Yeah. This is the one. Litecoin is seemingly the honey badger of crypto. It don't give a F. Interesting retest of this breakdown though. That looks really nasty for Litecoin. That's a fairly decent trend line too. I would classify that as a retest. Pick up some of the highs through there as well. Yeah, it might be positive on the day, but Don't think that's going to last long for Litecoin. Is slammed. Sol is the other one I was going to look at. So Sol's getting slammed as well. This could just be a little retest on the hourly of this breakdown. So I think Sol should see support around 120 around the same time Bitcoin's finding support. It's just got a bit further to go, that's all. All right, I think that's it for today. They're my levels with good bounce here. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we've still got another day or so down. Sit there either. Where are we down here? So yeah, the linear regression channel, bottom of that's around 80, 81K. So moves to the downside are still seemingly likely. But yeah, momentum looks like it actually may shift to the upside soonish. So again, that move down, there is a vector candle in there that I've marked off previously. That level there is going to be a very interesting one for a bounce. But again, look for actually a pretty decent bounce from there. Could be a month or two before we actually find the next high from that point. So could get a decent run. All right. Catch you later. Say goodbye, Mash.
Bye.